Greetings. This is Doc Ock here, live and in person from Blakfacts headquarters Central. Hope everybody's having a good day today. We're still doing it from time to time, and we're trying not to whine. All right, let's see what we got today for a proverb. Oh, I forgot to say where this one came from, but we know it's from somewhere in Africa. I just don't have the can't narrow it down right now, but the idea you'll be able to understand. Proverb for the day is: woman without man is like a field without seed. Woman without man is like a field without seed. Now I want you to think about that for just a minute. Okay, let that run around in your head and run it around, see what you come up with. A woman without a man is like a field without seed. And I know we're all in the time of women's liberation and all that, but don't get past that part. Just deal with the idea of a field without seed. Think about that part, and then you can apply it. Meanwhile, the poem we're going to read today is a love poem. Now, this is a Stajabu love poem, and it may be a little different than what you expect, but it's a love poem yet and still, and it's called Love That Loves You Back. Love that loves you back. Or in my case, I might say that loves you black, but she said back. So let's see what's the Jabu's talking about today. Out of the mudcloth roots. I love my bed and my bed loves me. I love to be all snuggled and cozy, covered and secure, enjoying the nice slow relaxation that pours over me, savoring the last few waking moments before my bed and I become one and drift together into the beautiful and lovely, spiritually resuscitating, physically rejuvenating state of marriage called sleep, where body and bed are wed blissfully, united throughout dream-filled hours while forsaking all others. And without a doubt, my bed loves and supports me, which is why I am reluctant to leave, even when I need, because I know it will miss me until I come again, very weary. Answering its call to recapture the feeling my welcoming, wonderful bed gives me. I love my bed. I love my bed, and my bed loves. I told you it was a Stajabu love poem, okay? Okay, so you should have known. Expect something a little different. All right, love poem for today. Meanwhile, we're moving on. We're getting back to black. That's right, we're coming back to black because it's that time of in the universe. It's that time in the universe. We're on universal time. We're on UT. We're not on East Coast time. We're not on PT time. We're not on PC time, color CP time. We're on universal time. And the time it is right now is to get back to black. So we're going to come right out of Black Fire with a piece by Mr. David Llorens. The piece is called The Fellah, the Chosen Ones, the Guardian. Now, when I'm doing these readings, I just want you to know it is not planned weeks in advance. It's done at the drop of a hat, at a moment's notice. It all depends on how I feel and what I feel what message I think I might like to convey today. So I put this all together. I can do it in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I usually don't spend a lot of time ruminating. So it's just right off the rip. And I chose this one because there's some people out here right now that feel like they are the chosen ones. And maybe they are, and maybe they're not. So let's see what David Llorens has to say about the chosen ones and the guardian as well. Okay, so let's see what he has to say about that. In the presence of the guardian, the chosen one is allowed to act like a Fellah only if the guardian is acting like a Fellah. and exceptions to this rule are extremely rare. So that's a quote off the top. They're giving me a problem here. They're not letting me continue with my video. I don't understand why. Let's see here. Go back here. Let's see if we can start it up again. We'll try it over again. Here we go. We're going to go here. Oh, man, this is going to take a minute. Give me a second here. Just trying to deal with a little bit of a issue. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Where's my thing at here? All right, now. There we go. Okay. And we'll do that. Okay. So we're going to try this one more time. Try it again. Let's see what we get this time. See if it'll work. Okay, it says we're live again. All right. So starting over again. Where were we at? I done lost the essay. Shoot. Where'd the page go? I thought I was holding it right there. Okay, give me a minute here. It was right there. Dang. That's what happens when you get distracted. Here we go. All right. So we're talking about the Fellah, the chosen ones, the guardian. I'm going to start this again. In the presence of the guardian, the chosen one is allowed. The chosen one is allowed to act like a Fellah, only if the guardian is acting like a Fellah. And exceptions to this rule are extremely rare. In his powerful work, The Wretched of the Earth, which has been called a revolutionary Bible, Frantz Fanon made this brilliant observation, and I quote, "Now the Fellah, the unemployed man, the starving native, do not lay a claim to the truth. They do not say that they are the truth, for they are the truth." That's kind of like the saying we have here. Those that say don't know, those that know don't say. Okay? So he makes the observation, Frantz Fanon in The Wretched of the Earth, now the Fellah, the unemployed man, the starving native, do not lay a claim to the truth. They do not say they are the truth, for they are the truth. So think about that. That's the end quote. Fanon's words were written with direct reference to the masses of natives vis-a-vis the native intellectual or the native who had adopted the forms of thought of the colonialist bourgeoisie. Okay, and that's a quote. At the time of the writing, Fanon was one of the most articulate spokesmen for the Algerian Revolution. They were revolting against the French, for those of you who don't recall. But inherent in Fanon's writings was a profound concern for oppressed blacks, the colonized, the world over, including this land that he described as a foreign European colony that, quote unquote, decided to catch up with Europe. I believe he's talking about America there. According to Fanon, it succeeded so well that the United States of America became a monster in which the taints, the sickness, and the inhumanity of Europe have grown to appalling dimensions, end quote. It's interesting to note that his early death by cancer, which occurred on these shores, in other words, American shores, might possibly have been avoided had he not feared coming to this country for treatment. Okay. A bit ironic, but his fears were not so unreal, nor were they based on myth. Quote, "For they are the truth," end quote. So simple, so mighty, and so many implications. And the fellow Fanon spoke of very definitely inhabits this land, and he is in this land, no less the truth than in Fanon's adopted country of Algeria. We have for so many years attempted to avoid him, to not see him, and upon seeing him, we have pretended that we did not. But we know who the Fellah is in this country. But the Fellah in recent times has forced us to look at him, to see him, and he has made it increasingly difficult for us to deny his presence and his condition. Moreover, he has forced us to listen to him, to hear him, albeit our response to him more often than not makes one wonder. We have seen him erupt in Harlem and Watts and Minneapolis and Chicago and LA and where else? Seattle. Okay. And to think that Malcolm did not speak. Oh, and we heard him through the voice of Brother Malcolm. And to think that Malcolm did not speak for the Fellah simply because they were not card-carrying followers is really not to think at all. What is this? Why is this thing keep stopping? I don't understand this. That's twice it's done that. Well, I'm carrying on. Let us, for our purposes, define the chosen ones. Quite simply, those blacks among us who in words, actions, inaction, and indifference, and we know who we are, lay a claim to the truth. The Fellah knows who we are. After all, we are so easily identified, but the marks of identification that come to mind are not so superficial as the clothes we wear or the houses we live in. More precisely, the chosen ones are given to a pattern of thought and reflex that is indeed pronounced. One of the more obvious marks of identity of the chosen ones is the predictable nature of their telling comments on the Fellah. Now what? Okay, this is going along and along and along here. The chosen ones' comments on the Fellah, for the most part, lack validity and are often quite unintelligent. Although the chosen ones think themselves rather learned, however, they are indeed telling. To be sure, they are telling about ourselves. Another identity is the chosen one's reactions to the Fellah, his words, his actions, and his very existence, the right to which is often challenged by the reactionary nature of the chosen ones. But alas, the chosen ones manage to sympathize with the Fellah when he rebels, or do they? Perhaps it is more accurate to say that the chosen ones experience a vicarious orgasm of the soul when the Fellah rebels. For you see, in a very real sense, the Fellah is rebelling for the chosen ones who, with such painful ramifications, have conceded the right to rebel for the right to be among the chosen ones, the right to serve the guardian. And the guardian, of course, is the white man. And to elaborate on the exceptions is to indulge in futile exercise. Whitey is the guardian who, not out of kindness or brotherhood or any such myth, but out of intense fear, has taken upon himself from the Fellah, has taken upon himself the chosen ones in a desperate attempt to protect himself from the Fellah. I'll say that part again. Whitey is the guardian who, not out of kindness or brotherhood or any such myth, but out of intense fear, has taken upon himself the chosen ones in a desperate attempt to protect himself from the Fellah. This is getting more interesting. With unequaled resolve, he has designed in this valley of rampant timidity a peculiar niche wherein the chosen ones reside in all their misery, and the suffering of the chosen ones is apparent for many reasons. Paramount among the reasons for their misery is the inescapable fact that in each of the chosen ones there dwells some Fellah. That same fury is cradled in his psyche. That same desperation buried in the pit of his belly. But unlike the Fellah, when his emotions demand that he rebel, his debt to the guardian, whose special dues of the chosen ones demands that he repress. When his emotions demand that he rebel, his debt to the guardian, those special dues of the chosen ones, demands that he repress. Although the indoctrination of the chosen ones has ensured certain mechanical reactions to given situations involving the Fellah, his emotions do not and perhaps cannot respond to this specific indoctrination. Emotionally, the chosen one remains a Fellah. Hence, his emotional response is in direct conflict with his physical response, resulting in a vicious paradox. Witness the language of the chosen ones. Within the confines of safety, they will talk of things being soulful, nitty-gritty, and funky. But they will unfailingly avoid this ethnic behavior whenever the atmosphere suggests that their place might be jeopardized. In the presence of the guardian, the chosen one is allowed to act like a Fellah, only if the guardian is acting like a Fellah. And exceptions to this rule are extremely rare. Let the Fellah choose the wrong time and place to become emotional or funky, and witness the chosen ones squirm and cringe as their roots become like terrible scorching fires. Let me say that again. Let the Fellah choose the wrong time and place to become emotional or funky, and witness the chosen ones squirm and cringe as their roots become like terrible scorching fires. A young black lady, a very chosen one, who in her words belongs to the very high-class church, recently conveyed the following incident to me. And I quote, "One Sunday morning, in the presence of a white friend, she turned on the TV only to be confronted with the spectacle of a Negro church service where they, the fellas, one guesses, were carrying on, quote unquote. She confided that it made her, quote unquote, very ashamed. I inquired why and asked her if there was something wrong with people praising their God in their way. She allowed that there was really nothing wrong with it, but that she just thought we should keep those such things to ourselves, end quote. It is rather interesting that she, a chosen one, should use the pronoun we, but nevertheless not at all surprising, for even the most Catholic, Episcopal, Unitarian, or what have you, among the chosen ones cannot avoid identification with the holy rollers. Although in complete control of the physical characteristics or manifestations of the Fellah in themselves, the chosen ones are unable to contain its inevitable rise. And at its mildest, the Fellah in them is much more Baptist than Catholic. But through further questioning, I discovered there was much more to her shame. It seems that her white friend's head drooped at the spectacle, alas, embarrassed. Of course, the chosen one's obligation to protect the guardian is at that precise moment primary. What follows might well be described as emotional prostitution. It is sad enough that the chosen one's bag requires that they stand before the guardian begging for that thing called freedom. But what is even more sad is that they think it their responsibility to free the guardian from this self-inflicted psychology, the guilt that makes a guardian's head droop at the sight of those uninhibited, holy rolling fellas. And the head droopers and their would-be saviors, in their collective misery, are seemingly incapable of reasoning that if the Fellah did not spend all that precious time holy rolling, it is quite possible that he would spend it making Molotov cocktails. And there are those who would suggest that the production of such might produce more real Christians than all of the high-class churches have managed to produce to date in this land. In that long quote. Each of us who has at some juncture played the role of the chosen ones, whether by choice or circumstance, can recall at least one cringing experience. About 10 years ago, while riding a bus en route to school, a shabbily dressed black man sat next to me. He proceeded without apparent qualm to pull out a hamburger and began feasting. Well, it so happened that there was a shortage of brothers on that bus, but there were many guardians present. Now, let's face it, if that had been a bus full of brothers, I probably would have said something like, "Dig, baby, my man's going for himself," which translated is like proclaiming the cat soulful or something similar. And my emotions would have been quite safe. At any rate, I would not have been embarrassed by such an incident on a bus full of brothers. Oops, where'd I go? Where'd it go? Shoot. Oh, I would not have been, where'd it say? I would not have been embarrassed by such an incident on a bus full of brothers, and what brother would have been? But with all those guardians present, and my head filled with all that phenomena that once passed as values, I did what all good chosen ones would have done then, and still do today. I squeezed against the side of the bus, face flush against the window, and did my damnedest to pretend that either I or my hamburger eating brother, the Fellah, did not exist, and that the incident was not really happening. What choice did I have? How else might I have preserved the pride of the chosen one? And what's a squashed nose when so much is at stake anyway? But I find this very sad. It was perhaps 4 or 5 years later before I was finally able to question my reaction to the incident, before I began to understand it. On that harsh day, it was so simple for me to condemn the Fellah for causing me such great pain. Okay? He caused me pain. Well, blinded by the cruel plight of the chosen ones, I certainly thought he did. After all, I would not have eaten a hamburger on a bus. Well, perhaps on a bus full of brothers, maybe, and therefore it was wrong. Certainly not very cultured. Is that not the usual method employed by the chosen ones to condemn the Fellah? I would not have done it. I suggest that such was indeed the usual method, and it remains so to this day. So, the Fellah, the chosen ones, the guardian. Now, we're going to continue on with that tomorrow. There's only a couple pages left. We're going to finish that, and we'll move on. But it's interesting proposition he puts out there about the contradictions between the being a Fellah, which is basically a po folks, or being one of the chosen ones, which is equivalent to being, Hayella, to being part of the black bourgeoisie, let's say. In other words, those folks who are trying to fit in within the general population as much as possible. Okay, trying to fit in. They may not be able to, you can't change their leopard spots, but you can dye their hair. Okay, and just kind of recede into the background. So apparently that's what the chosen ones have been trying to do. And then the guardians, which that was explained already. So meanwhile, have a day with a great big smile. We'll see you after a little while. This is Doc Ock at noon and 9 signing off. Sorry I have to go so rapidly, but I'm over time with this rhyme. And apparently we're having issues on Facebook. So I will try to see if I can upload this YouTube version onto Facebook. So those of you who missed us on Facebook will be able to catch it as a replay. All right. So peace out until later. Later will be greater. And I hope y'all will be straight. We'll be black here tonight at 9. We'll see you then at another time. We'll see you here at another time. Absolutely.